I'm currently staring at my resignation letter, sitting in my Manhattan apartment, and the silence is honestly the most expensive thing I've ever bought. For 4 years, I was the fixer at one of the biggest PR firms in the city. I built brands from the ground up, cleaned up billion-dollar scandals, and lived my life on a red-eye flight schedule. People look at my life from the outside and see success. The tailored suits, the corner office, the invitation to every high-profile event in the city. But the reality was just a constant, suffocating grind. Every hour of my day belonged to a client, a crisis, or a deadline. My partner, Mark, was always so proud of my hustle, or so he claimed. He was an architect, always talking about building a future together, while I was the one paying the mortgage on our brownstone, keeping his business afloat with my quarterly bonuses, and managing every detail of our domestic life. I loved him. Or, at least, I loved the version of him that cheered me on while I climbed the ladder. He was the soft place to land when the world got too loud, or so I thought. 2 months ago, I was handed the biggest account of my career, a massive, global rebrand for a Fortune 500 tech giant. It was a career maker. If I pulled this off, I was looking at a seat at the table. VP level, equity, the works. The only catch? I had to relocate to London for 6 weeks to handle the rollout. It was an intense, high-pressure assignment. I asked Mark to come with me, or at least fly out for a long weekend, but he had projects here in New York. He acted so supportive. He held my hands, looked me in the eye, and said, "Go get it, babe. I'll hold down the fort here. This is your moment." I went to London. I worked 18-hour days, crushed the rollout, and secured my promotion. It was a whirlwind, non-stop meetings, high-stakes dinners, constant pressure from stakeholders, and the relentless pace of a global launch. While I was thousands of miles away, Mark was here, holding down the fort. We talked every night. He sounded sweet, he sounded lonely, and I genuinely felt guilty for being gone so long. I pushed myself even harder, thinking that when I got back, we'd finally have the breathing room to enjoy the life I was working so hard to build. I imagined us taking a real vacation, maybe finally buying that house in the Hamptons he'd been eyeing. When I flew back home last Tuesday, I didn't tell him I was coming a day early. My flight got in ahead of schedule, and I wanted to surprise him with a dinner and the news of my promotion. I wanted to see his face light up when I told him we could finally stop worrying about the bills and the grind. I walked into our place around 7 p.m. The lights were dimmed. It wasn't empty. I heard music, soft, ambient jazz. I smelled dinner being cooked, a rich, complicated meal he told me he didn't have the energy for when I was here. I walked into the kitchen, the bags dropped from my hands, and the world just went cold. There he was, laughing and pouring wine for my former assistant, Sarah, the same assistant I had personally fired 6 months ago for leaking internal documents. The same woman who had spent months trying to undermine my projects and ruin my reputation in the office because she felt entitled to my position. Seeing them together wasn't just a betrayal, it was a sick, twisted joke. She was wearing my robe, they were laughing. Mark saw me standing there and he didn't even look guilty. He didn't stutter, he didn't try to hide anything. He just smirked, took a sip of his wine, and said, "You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow. You're always working anyway." I got lonely. I didn't yell, I didn't break anything, I didn't even cry. I just felt this cold, hard clarity wash over me. I realized he wasn't just cheating. He was playing a long game with the one person who tried to destroy my career. They had been laughing about my obsession with work while they sat in my living room, eating off my plates, in my house. Sarah looked at me with this smug satisfaction that made my blood run cold. She didn't even bother to look away. I turned around and walked into my home office. I didn't lock the door. I didn't want them to think I was afraid. I packed my essentials, my passport, my laptop, a few changes of clothes, and I sat down to do what I do best. I handled the situation. I logged into our joint bank account, the one I had been funding for years, and transferred everything that was legally mine into a private account. I didn't leave a note. I walked back into the kitchen, slid my engagement ring off my finger, and placed it right next to their wine glasses on the counter. I looked Mark directly in the eye, and for the first time in years, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw a stranger. I saw a man who was small, desperate, and remarkably common. I didn't say a word. I just walked out of that house. I spent that night in a hotel, and the next morning, I signed my resignation. I'm done with that firm, and I'm done with him. People say you need closure, but the truth is, seeing them together was all the closure I needed. It was the gift of total clarity. My parents and his friends keep calling, telling me I'm being irrational, and that I should talk it out, that maybe he just made a mistake. They talk about being the bigger person, but why would I negotiate with people who were plotting my downfall while I was out there building our future? Why would I want to mend a bridge that was built on sabotage and lies? I've already got a headhunter calling me for a CEO-level position in LA, and honestly, I'm taking it. I'm trading the brownstone, the fake boyfriend, and the office politics for a new zip code and zero baggage. I'm done playing nice. I spent years fixing everyone else's problems, and now, for the first time, I'm only focused on myself. I'm not just starting over, I'm starting better. Some bridges aren't meant to be crossed, they're meant to be burned, and I'm finally enjoying the heat. I realized that my value wasn't in how much I could sacrifice, but in what I was willing to demand for myself. The silence in this apartment is beautiful because it's mine. No one is telling me I'm working too hard, no one is secretly waiting for me to fail, and no one is gaslighting me into feeling guilty for my own success. I've realized that the greatest power you can have is the ability to walk away from a life that no longer fits you. My life is finally my own again. Every decision, every move, every failure, and every triumph from here on out belongs to me. And honestly, I've never felt more alive. I didn't just survive, I'm evolving. And I can't wait to see what I do when I'm not carrying the weight of people who never deserved me in the first place. This is just the beginning of the best chapter I've ever written.